when a young man in a blazer arrives in a white car who, on getting out, complains that the bike is there and kicks it, knocking it to the ground. At that, the boy who owns the bike arrives humbly and asks him why he did that to his bike. The guy in the blazer with arrogance says that there is no place to put a bike there. The boy humbly apologizes and says he didn't need to do that, and when he lifts the bike he realizes that the chain has broken. And then he looks at the other, recognizing him of college time, and then calls him by name and greets him, saying it's been a long time since he's seen each other, and reaches out to greet him, but the guy in the blazer says he doesn't know him, and he then says they went to college together. But the boy in the blazer says that he would never go to college with a shaved foot and that he studied only with elite people. The boy then says that everything is fine, and embarrassed he lowers his hand and apologizes for confusing him with someone else. Upon entering the company's reception, the two find themselves sitting there and impatiently waiting for the interview, and then the secretary goes down the stairs and greets them and asks them to wait a little longer and that she will notify the owner of the company that they have already arrived. Thank you, and she leaves. The secretary then goes to her boss and says that the candidates are already at the company. The boss then asks her to send them up and wait for her and says that soon they will be called for the interview. The secretary then takes them to the boss's room. They greet her and she thanks her secretary and says that she can go and that from there the interview is up to her. The girl then says that it's okay and that she will need something is just call her and leave. She then asks them to feel that the interview is about to begin. They sit next to each other and then collects their resumes, but only the guy in the plaid shirt who hands in the resume, and the one in the blazer says that how he is more evolved. He sent it by email and says that it's from the past. The owner of the company calls the blazer guy by his name and saying that she didn't recognize him and that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He then says that he hoped she would recognize him, and then she says that she looked at his resume and that he is congratulations, that his curriculum is very good and that he is well studied. He then looks at the other and says that as she studies with him she knows him and knew that he was the smartest in the class and that he is a PhD in the office department, and says he is the best option for the company. She then says she knows and that's why the vacancy is his. He then asks her that she didn't even look at his resume and asks her to give him some hope. She says she looked at his resume, yes, but the other's is excellent, but he says he's as studied as the other guy. The other looks at him and smiles, saying that no one compares to him. The woman then asks him to leave because the vacancy had already been filled by the other. But the boy insists that he needs the job and asks her to help him. The hired boy says that there is no charity there and that there is a company and that needs competent people. She then says that as she had said the vacancy was already filled, but he insists that she give him an opportunity to show that he has the ability and says that he is as capable as the other. She then says that to help him he shouldn't choose the job and says that he has an open job, but it's for janitor. He then says that your resume is very good and that janitor, and says that as he needs it he accepts, and she says he can start at that moment and for him to go down and talk to the secretary so he can start. He gets up and thanks her and wishing the other guy good luck as he leaves. So the owner of the company tells her new employee that she is very happy that he is there in her company and welcomes him. He then says that she will not regret having hired him and says he wants to know the room where he will work. She then accompanies him to his room and when introducing the room to him says he can be at ease and says that there are some worksheets that need to be filled out and it says it needs until noon. He then says that before noon they will all be ready. She then says that she is fine and that she has to go solve some things and then comes back to get her. She leaves the room leaving him there. He then despairs that he doesn't know how to fill in the worksheets and says that he always paid to do his college work and so he doesn't know how to fill in the worksheets. He tries every way, but he can't do anything, and then he has the idea of calling his friend and he's sure she'll know how to solve it. He then greets her and she asks him what he wants. He then says he's with a problem at his job and wanted to know if she can help him. But she goes right away saying that she can't and that she's too busy. He then asks to calm down and says that she knows there's a reward later, but she says she doesn't want to know and hangs up the phone. He stays there not knowing what to do and he tells his boss that he knew how to do it. He then opens all the desk drawers in the hope that he finds at least one example and then decides to Google it, and not finding anything he says it is very difficult. He makes another call now to his friend and goes right away saying that he needs his help to solve a problem in the company where he is working and says that it is his friend's specialty and asks if he can help him, but his friend hangs up the phone. He then goes back to rummaging through all the drawers and doesn't find even a single draft to give him an idea of how to do it. At that moment, his boss arrives in his office and then asks him if he managed to fill in the worksheets. He then asks for more time and says that he got involved with some personal things and says that by the end of the afternoon he will deliver. She then says that there was already notice that she needed for that day until noon. She then says that she wants it that day and that she can't go beyond that day, and then she leaves, leaving him there in her room. He still doesn't know what to do, and suddenly the janitor enters the room asking for permission and says he was asked to clean his room. When he sees the cleaning boy, he starts to smile and tells him to clean the room, calling him a janitor. The boy then asks him why he has treated him that way since they arrived at the company. He then arrogantly replies that he is not the same type as the janitor and that he does not get involved with that kind of people, and then tells the boy if look and says don't mix. The boy then continues there doing his job and says that he will no longer disturb him and that he will let him work, and then leaves, and he remains there not knowing what to do with the spreadsheets, and so he does it anyway, because the hours are going on and he needs to deliver. The janitor then goes back to the boy's room and sees him there desperate, not knowing what to do, and then asks him if he needs help. But the boy yells at him saying that if he can't, imagine a simple janitor would get it. The boy then says that he can help him, and the other then tells him to leave there, saying that he is a simple janitor and if he thinks he can help him in something. At that moment, the boss with his secretary and already comes in asking for the worksheets and says that until that moment he is not finished. He says that he is finished, and that she can look. She takes the worksheets and starts to look, but the secretary says that it's all wrong. She then asks him what's that over there? And it's done, and then asks if it's not right. She then says it's all wrong and it doesn't even come close to financial protocol. He then tries to hide it and says he can fix it for her, and then asks her for another deadline and says that another 2 hours he can finish. But she says that there's no way and that it's already late and that there's no more deadline, and then asks for him to look at what he's done and then ask him if he's really going to be able to do all that there. The janitor approaches and apologizes for intruding and goes on saying that he has a lot of knowledge in the area and if they want he can help them. The other one arrogantly asks him ironically if he is the Robin Hood of financial protocol now. The secretary then apologizes for intruding on their conversation but says that she knows the cleaning guy and that he has the ability to do the spreadsheets for her. The boss then tells the secretary that she will trust her and then asks him to show her what you know how to do. He then asks her to give him just an hour and that he gives her the ready worksheets. she then asks the other boy to accompany her to her room and they then leave, leaving him there with the secretary. He then thanks her for everything and says he will do his best to solve the spreadsheets. As he takes the computer, she says he doesn't have to thank her as she knows him very well. The boss then tells the guy in the blazer that she gave him the opportunity because she had known him for a long time, but that he didn't show ability and that she needs qualified people for the position. He then asks her to give him another chance and says that he was very nervous and that he got lost, but that he will do the job. But she says that there is no way and that it is on the first day that he should have shown what he knew how to do. He then says he needs that job and he doesn't know what to do. She then says that as he needs the job, she needs someone to handle it and says she'll wait for the other guy's protocol to see what he's going to do, and then warns and says he let her down. At that moment he arrives with the secretary in the boss's office and then he hands him the spreadsheets. She takes the computer and starts looking at the results and then says that it is perfect and congratulates him and says that everything is correct. The other then gets up angrily and says that how can it be right and that it didn't take 15 minutes for him to do all that while he took all day. The boy then says that it's not the time, but knowing how to do it. The boss then congratulates him on the excellent job and says that he is the newest hire at the company. The other then gets furious and says he doesn't believe what she is saying and that she will hire the janitor instead, and says that she will knows and that they studied together and that she knows he has competence, and so he remains there indignantly. She then says that just like he said that a simple janitor managed to do what he didn't, and she says that he will replace him and that since he needs the job he can take his place as janitor. He then smiles and says he will never be a janitor because I don't study for that. She then says that to be a janitor you don't need to be educated but know how to clean and sweep. He then says that she's right and that's why he has the qualities to work at other better companies than hers. She then asks him to leave and that he look for another company for him to work. He then leaves, and she then apologizes to the boy for not having analyzed his resume and that he gave preference to a person who had no competence and who then he is welcome to your company. He then says that it's okay and that she doesn't need to apologize and that he understands why she opted for an acquaintance, and goes on to say that he's going to grab that opportunity with all his might and then thanks her for the opportunity. She says that everything is fine and asks the secretary to accompany him to the room that the other occupied and that now the room is his. She smiling accompanies him, and in the room she says that he can return it to her and he then hands it over and thanks him for helping him and says he can count on him for whatever she needs. She then says that her friendship was not made at that moment and that he can also count on her in whatever he needs and wishes him welcome to the company. Never underestimate someone's knowledge, no matter how simple it is.